What is up, Mullet Gang? It is your favorite neuro-edgy duo, ready to empower the fuck out of you.
Are you ready to break free from the chains of neurotypical expectations?
Hey guys, it's Chris and Amy from the Mullet Gang podcast, and this is our special series, the Neuro Nest. And our goal of the series is really to let you guys into our neurodiverse family, where we navigate our marriage with both of us having ADHD, with parenting, career, self-care, just life, how we manage that as a couple with ADHD, both newly diagnosed later in life, and with two kiddos that also have ADHD, and just our story and how it's all played out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we get to kind of look back and see, now that we kind of realize and can see ourselves through that lens, right, of neurodiverse, and thinking about ways that we have interacted in the past, and how that's impacted our marriage and our relationship, and really just how we've not only survived but really thrived the last 21 years.
It all makes sense, right? I mean, I think we've always had this X factor, this chemistry, this connection that has carried us through the past 21 years, and we never really knew why or what it was. But now knowing that it's kind of this shared experience with having ADHD and being neurodivergent, and how we've grown and evolved over the last 21 years, we are not the same people that met 21 years ago. And I think that's the cool thing. We've gotten to see different kind of forms of each other, different versions of each other. And that's what has kept it interesting, spicy, fun, right? We didn't just stay the same. We both have grown and evolved, but together in different ways, right?
Yeah, I think that glue is kind of our common values and our connection that we've had, right? So there's that natural connection there. But just as any marriage, it takes a lot of work, so is ours. So there's that instant connection. There's that sort of you need that foundation. We have that. And then how do you sort of leverage and build upon that foundation? And I think that's what we've been able to do together. And as we've gone through these different decades, and we've changed and evolved, and we've had kids or different priorities, different career paths, we've managed to sort of evolve together, and so we've been supportive of each other, and we've worked through a lot of difficult times, and we've had a lot of amazing times together because we have that genuine love, that genuine care, and really, we're each other's best friend.
Truly. And I think we always are able to just have levity and lightness in our life and just laugh at each other. I mean, even when we get in fights or we have our little moments, just being able to tease each other and laugh and make it a fun, flirtatious thing, I think that's really helped us just recover through the hard times. And when we're going through it, we know that we always have each other and we can have that fun and lightness.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's just a lot of levity in what we do. And yesterday we were with the kiddos and, dancing around, and, we taught Alexa to do dance mode. So we activate dance mode, and, everyone's kind of having a goofy fun time. And, that's just who we are. And I wouldn't want it to be any other way. And I think the way we operate in our house is we just have a lot of fun. We're very authentic. We get to be ourselves. Our kids are really appreciative of that. Take, for example, our younger daughter, she's one person at school, and then she's this whole other person at home. And, it's because I think we allow her that space and that place to just be very authentic. And she's comfortable with that. And so I think that that's just how we are, right? We're very authentic, goofy, fun. We say what's on our mind. We always can kind of finish each other's sentences. Sometimes we're always thinking the same thing, or, have the same joke in mind, or whatever. So, those kind of things, I think, just keep, things novel, right? We keep things fresh and fun. We're very spontaneous at times, very impulsive, right? To a point where that's caused some issues.
No one wants to be the adults, right? And I think there are pros and cons, obviously, with being in a relationship with another ADHDer. We have so much fun, and we're on the same page, wanting to be adventurous and goofy and seek that novelty and dopamine. But at the same time, we have struggled with neither one of us wanting to be the adult or the one kind of with that routine and structure responsibility. So we're also going to talk about just how we've navigated that. I mean, I think it's common for ADHDers to struggle financially, right? Because you kind of have the impulse. You want to go travel. You want new things. You have new hobbies. You have a fixation. And often our fixations also line up. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, but it's been so worth it. And I think now, as we're in this parenting mode, also with kids with ADHD, we really value this idea of authenticity and accepting our brains, right? Like not trying to fit into a neurotypical standard within our marriage or within parenting or even as individuals or in our career. We want to just embrace our neuro spiciness and also teach our girls that they have the superpower and their brains are also very powerful and unique, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we want to encourage, just acceptance of it and understand it brings its own challenges. So also how to overcome those challenges, how to navigate those things. As we've been diagnosed kind of later in life, you look back and you do a lot of reflection on these things like, oh, this is why I did this, and this is why I was acting this way in these situations, and this is what kind of led me to this point in certain ways. I think that's very advantageous for us in terms of, sort of reciprocating that for our kids early on, right? And saying, okay, explain, this is who we are. This is why we do what we do. These are the challenges you might face, and this is how you might navigate those things. And I think also just a model, acceptance of that, and just to say, there's nothing wrong with, the way our brains work. In fact, I think it's a great thing. I wouldn't want to be any other way. And so I feel like that's something that we have an opportunity to do with our kids and in terms of our relationship and just the love that we have for each other and kind of model that, especially for our two girls, right? Showing them, as a father and a husband, what they might seek in a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it has been so powerful in understanding each other and our dynamic, but also I think it's such a great gift to our girls. The fact that we've been on this journey, we got diagnosed, we've learned so much about ADHD. It's allowed us to have this level of empathy and compassion with them that otherwise we would not have had, right? So certain behaviors or things that they do, I think if you don't have that lens or that understanding, you would be upset. You might shut down their authenticity or their neurodiversity, right? Because it doesn't fit in or it feels like something's wrong. But now, both you and I have been on this amazing journey of just being authentic, unmasking, just not really caring as much what people think and really embracing what we want. And to model that for our girls, I think that's the best gift. To say, do what you want, do what makes you happy. If other people don't like it, that's okay. And I think instilling that value in them at such a young age is going to be super powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just that last piece of having the lens of parenting and understanding your kids, right? And understanding why they're doing what they're doing. So not getting so upset in a moment and having that empathy and understanding of, okay, this is how their brain is working right now. They're not necessarily choosing to bounce off the walls at certain times. And, this is just like their typical mode of operation. This is how they're operating. And so rather than getting upset or kind of trying to figure out why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? We kind of have that lens now to kind of look through and see our kids in different ways and each other. I mean, that's really, in certain ways, I think of all the things that we've learned about ourselves and being able to kind of say, okay, now I can accept that part of Amy for what it is, and I also understand that about me. So now I have this way of kind of saying, okay, I can kind of pause the moment and say, okay, I'm not going to be so hard on myself for, forgetting to do something or having this immediate reaction about like being sensitive about feeling like that someone's rejecting me. You might say, for example, like we're getting ready to do this podcast and I wanted to wear my glasses because I can't see and there might be a glare or whatever. And, so like if Amy comments and says, I don't think you should wear those, that's an immediate rejection to me. And that's a sense of like, kind of like, okay, well, I don't look good in those glasses or whatever. And that's just kind of my initial thinking. And be able to pause and recognize those things and to kind of work through those things in a relationship.
I mean, it's amazing too when you have two little ones that are mirroring back yourself, and you start to see all those things in you. And you understand, you have that compassion, right? When they're maybe dysregulated or there's a sensory ick that's triggering them, right? Or they're feeling rejected. So you start to see all those things in yourself, in your partner, and in your kids. And you can approach it so differently when you understand that. I mean, even you and I, recognizing our hyperfixations, right? And we get locked into that if we're interrupted, while we may lash out or be irritable with each other, right? Because sometimes our hyperfixations are competing with one another, and understanding that we might be more sensitive to certain things. And it's just amazing. I feel like it's opened up just a whole new world for us. And we want to share that with you guys. We want to share what we've learned and how that's helped us, some of our challenges, and just raise awareness about this issue, because I think there's a lot of folks later in life that end up finding out they're neurodivergent. They get diagnosed probably around the same time that they are in a parenting role, right? And so you're trying to heal your inner child and figure yourself out while parenting and showing up for them. And I think the biggest thing for us has been emotional regulation, right? Like both you and I have struggled with that a lot. And it's not really tested to the full limit until you have kids because you can't control things. And like every second, your emotional regulation is tested. And then you're trying to instill that in your kids, how to regulate. So it really has been helpful because we're both working on that, supporting each other, but also teaching our kids.
Yeah, and I think we've been able to kind of step back and recognize the things that impact us as someone who has ADHD, right? So we think about all those competing priorities in your mind. And I think, for me, it's this sense of feeling like I want to be everywhere all at once. So that's the way my mind works. So if there's a stress in the environment, say one of the girls is acting up or doing something, I have all these other thoughts in my mind, like, work thoughts, finance thoughts, whatever. I can't be present. I can't be in the moment. I can't be the best parent I can be. And I think that you and I have recognized how to regulate our emotions through making better lifestyle decisions. And so I have made a complete career change, as we've talked about. And my priority right now is to be a full-time dad. As I'm trying to build my business and trying to develop this coaching business on the side, now it's really just kind of seeing like what a transformation that's made for not only us emotionally, being better parents, being more present with our kids. I've gone from maybe 90 minutes a day with the kids to all day, aside from when they're at school, right? So pick up, drop off, spending quality time afterwards. But really that's helped kind of lower those heightened emotions because we have that sense of connection with the kids. They're not acting out as much at bedtime routine where we've dreaded. They're not needing to hold on to us so long because we've been with them throughout the day and spent that quality time together. And I think we recognize those things, though, that we need to create within our environment that work best with our brains to be the best people we can, to show up for each other emotionally, to show up for our kids emotionally. Carved out time now at the end of every day. We really just kind of sit and talk and we kind of reflect, make time to really kind of talk through, sort of how we're evolving, right? And the ways that we're making these changes. And by no means we're experts, right? Because we're learning every day. And so we're not going to sit here and say, hey, this is everything you should do. We're going to really kind of explain how we've done it and offer suggestions. And maybe these things will be helpful for, other families and other couples. So.
Yeah, you have to find what works for you. With any advice or feedback or tools, you have to customize it, especially when you have ADHD, right? Like we know the neurotypical way doesn't work, but even with ADHD interventions, there's a lot of different things that you can do to manage your symptoms, to get help and support, but you have to customize it for you and your family. But I think what we realized is with both of us having ADHD and both of our children, the way that we were navigating our life just wasn't working. We both were very kind of immersed in our career. We both had very busy, successful careers, which is great. And we spent a lot of time building that. But we got to the point where we were so busy and working so much that we weren't seeing our kids, right? And we also weren't able to dedicate time to each other or our own self-care in the way that we wanted. So I think everything came to a head where it wasn't pretty, right? We were both overworked, burnout. The kids weren't getting what they needed. And it just kind of came to this point where we had to make a significant change because our needs weren't being met. Our kids' needs weren't being met. And everyone was just super dysregulated. And when you have a household of neurodivergent people that are dysregulated and not getting their needs met, it's like this perfect storm. So we had to make kind of this drastic call of something's got to change. Like we have to step back. We have to find more of a balance. We need to be more present with ourselves in our marriage and with our kids to make this work. And so that's just an example of what worked for us. It doesn't mean that it's going to work for everyone, but sometimes you have to do something non-traditional or unexpected to figure out what's going to work in your life. So we're going to share that today and kind of start at the beginning and go through all our different eras. So I hope you guys enjoy. Okay, guys, so this is the beginning of our eras tour. The year was 2003. How did we meet? How did this amazing connection start, Chris?
Well, I had moved down from Colorado early 2003, came down here to go to culinary school, actually. And so as I sort of started my journey, I had some connections down here in Florida. So my godmom and Amy's mom were good friends and colleagues. They worked together at the college. And so there was hey, my godson just moved down here. Maybe you guys should get connected in terms of Amy and Chris. And so it took a little bit of time, and I was, maybe not sure that I was ready to jump into a relationship and everything. It had only been, 7 months really since I had gotten here. And so, lo and behold, I get a phone call from Amy. Ironically, I had met your parents before I met you. So I had attended, I think, a play with them. And so I had met them and not knowing that this would be my lifelong in-laws. And so that was pretty cool. But you were the first one to kind of make the first step. You gave me a call and we decided, okay, let's give it a shot. We had a little date set up at TGI Fridays. You had brought your friend with you, and I remember I had not met you or even seen you yet. So I'm standing out front, and you're walking up side by side with your friend, and I'm like, oh, I really hope it's that tall blonde one because she really caught my eye. And sure enough, it was. And we had a little dinner date. I think we had an instant connection. We were kind of already kind of being playful and goofy at that time. And I know I wanted to see more of you right away. So we ended up deciding to have our real first kind of official date on Halloween. And so funny story, I guess, like we had a few little bloopers, like, that's just true to who I am, right? So I'm pulling in the ATM as we're picking you up. And I was in my old little pickup truck, and remember I hit the curb and I ran over the curb, and just kind of, little embarrassing moments. But overall we had a fun night. I remember we had met someone there like at the top of the bar, and they had said, oh, you guys, have you guys been married for a long time or been together for a long time? Because I think they can kind of just notice, right? There's that energy, that connection that we had. And that definitely was true. So we met up Halloween night. Amy was a naughty nurse. This is like Kill Bill, sort of that character from there. And I was a doctor, right? And so we kind of played off that, and I had a lot of fun with it. And it just really kind of took off from there. And so that's really kind of our meet cute, right? How we met. It's just been an awesome journey from there. So that's how we really started.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like that first interaction at Fridays, I think there was just a lot of anticipation and uncertainty. Like it was a blind date, technically. I had looked you up in the computer system because I worked at Valencia. So I kind of looked up and saw your student ID, but Chris didn't know what it looked like, really much about me. And yeah, it was just like this instant connection. I think we even like shared each other's food, right? And then I remember standing in the parking lot at Fridays and like we didn't want to leave. Right. And we just were kind of really excited about each other and kind of felt this chemistry, and it just felt so natural. And so, yeah, we were going to go out for Halloween, and initially it was going to be like a big group, right? I was going to meet up with a bunch of friends, and I was like, oh, you can tag along. I'll introduce you to some people. But it just worked out where it was the two of us, and we went downtown Orlando, kind of all the spots that now are very nostalgic. We went to like the iBar, and we went to, I forgot the name of that bar that was on top of one of the big buildings, but we just kind of made our rounds around downtown Orlando in our costumes, just you and I, and there was just so much chemistry and connection. I feel like we just got each other. And yeah, I think people around us thought we were just like together for a long time. It's like these old souls that have always known each other. It was just so easy, right? And I think even from that point on, that's how our relationship was. Like we didn't have a lot of complications or games or conversations even about like, what do we want? Are we going to be exclusive? Are we official? Are we dating? I think we just met. We knew that we liked each other, and we knew kind of instantly, yes, this is my person and this is something that I want. And we never really looked back, right?
Yeah. And the rare part of that is like you were 19, I was 21 at the time.
Wow.
And so, you just don't see that these days, right? And I don't think that's really the traditional route, really more so nowadays. But, I think that is also just really speaks volume to like how connected we were, because at such a young age to really kind of feel that energy, to kind of already know that, to kind of have this intuition. I think that's very rare. I think we continue to have people reflect that on us, right? My mom, when she was visiting here last time, was just simple things like we love to hold hands all the time. Like I'll reach for your hand and you'll reach for my hand. I think that we just have a lot of comfort in each other, and we feel our authentic selves with each other, and we have that ability. We've always done that. We've like always been kind of goofy, always been kind of able to just kind of be unhinged a little bit at times. And we have like, it's like I look at you and I think that's normal. Like, and you look at me and think that's normal. And that's been really from day one, since we met, that we can be that way with each other.
Yeah. And I think building that foundation And that level of understanding has served us through really hard times, right? Because it definitely hasn't been easy, but because we had this connection, this chemistry, just like this shared understanding, which now we know a lot of it could have been ADHD, it has helped us persevere through a lot of really hard times. Because when you get together that young, right, and you go through all these different decades and growing pains, there are many times where both you and I easily could have walked away and kind of pieced out and said, yeah, this is too much, this is too hard. But I think we both knew that we were meant to be together, that our connection could overcome pretty much anything. And I think we feel today like we are stronger than we've ever been. I know we're more attracted to each other than we've ever been. It just keeps getting better. And it's hard to imagine that we could be together for this long, 21 years, and still get butterflies when we see each other, just still get excited about going on a date night, still get excited to come home and give each other a hug and kiss, to still have this amazing amount of like intimacy and spiciness in our relationship and fun. So I definitely think there's something to be said about our neurodivergence and how that has played out in that connection.
Yeah, I mean, I think our brains just work on the same wavelength, and I think in a sense that's also created issues at times, right? Because like you talked about our hyperfixations. Well, I might be in my hyperfixation and you're in your hyperfixation, and when we break that for each other, there's this sense of immediate kind of lashing out, or but we understand that, and like even in the last 4 months we've been able to laugh at those kind of things and like look back and just kind of we joke about it, right? Like we always find a way to turn our what we call a tiff into like a joke, or we'll kind of understand exactly where each other were in that moment, because I know you so well, you know me so well. And yet, they're always, even though you know each other so well, there's that playbook in your mind and you don't always follow the playbook. Sometimes you kind of I'm going to take this route instead of that route. And knowing that like it's probably going to bother you or you're going to probably bother me, right, in that way. But that's just kind of the way our brains work. And then we kind of find that way back together. And so, yeah, it's been amazing. And, to think about again, just how early on that we were able to meet. I'm going to be 44 this year. It'll be our 22nd year together. So literally that's half my life, that I've been with you. And so it's amazing to just kind of think about as we're prepared for this podcast and thought through those different eras, like think about everything that we've gone through. Like we've gone through so much. We've graduated college together. We've gotten into our careers together. We've changed our looks together. We had different music tastes together. Like we've gone through all these different evolutions. And then having kids has really been the ultimate test, I think, realizing, the strengths of our relationship, leveraging those, kind of also magnifying the weaknesses, I think, of, where we can continue to work. And we've done a lot of self-reflection in the last several years, especially as we kind of work through therapy, or we've kind of like really understood who we are and more about, how we interact. And so.
Oh, yeah, that's been huge. I mean, I think our dedication to working in therapy, both individually and as a couple, has been a big game changer, right? Because, it worked up until a certain point, but I think when everything was hitting us at once with life, it did become somewhat overwhelming. So getting some professional guidance and help, both of us understanding ourselves and each other, has allowed us to have lots of grace and compassion. And so I think even when we get mad, like we literally cannot stay mad at each other because we just have so much love and compassion for each other. Like when I'm mad at you, like I understand exactly what you're doing and why, and I can get a little irritated, but I think we can diffuse really fast, right? Like our recovery and repair is amazing. And couples are going to fight, right? Like you're not meant to just get along or agree on everything because then you're not being authentic. But I think when we do have those disagreements or we've had hard times, like we have come out so much stronger because we dedicate that time to really sit down, to pause, to talk about it, to understand it, and to work through it. And that love and compassion for each other has really, I think, been one of the biggest points of our success in marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think speaking personally, just, understanding why I react certain ways that I do, step back and take ownership of those things. I think that's been such a huge thing, especially as someone who is very defensive in terms of my ability to take, feedback or criticism, or really just the way I interpret things, right? You might say something and I interpret it as it's immediate attack, it's immediate question of what I'm doing. And we've kind of put pieces together to see, okay, why may that be and who I am? But like, I think in those moments where we're in disagreement or we're having an interaction, or, something that I've done, and I can immediately kind of step back and say, okay, that was kind of a defensive approach. I just need to kind of really reframe and approach this in a different way. And so I think that's been really a strength of ours is be able to continue to look at, even though we don't always get to practice those in the moments, right? Because there's still that conditioning of like, this is who I've been for a long time. We're able to at least kind of look back and say, you understand what I'm doing and the way I'm doing it, and I understand the way you're doing things and why you're doing it. And we'll never be perfect. We'll always have those imperfections, but we're going to continue to work on those things. And really, then I think, in the same sense, model that again. We're kind of taking that back to our kids too, to say, this is how you can have a strong relationship. You can have conflict and you can work through conflict. But if you understand what I did in the situation, what my role was. But for me, it's been a lot of that kind of journey in the last year or 2 years, especially since we've been in kind of couples therapy. We've talked through a lot of our interactions and how we've sort of managed, and we learn how to, fight fair and break this down, right? Let's break down why we got upset. And we kind of already know, but it's like really taking ownership of that, because I think in the past, I've not always been strong at taking ownership of that, right? Because I also have this very strong need to be perfect, right? This perfectionism. And so this idea that, oh, I did something wrong, or, what I said is incorrect, or, whatever, that's something that I've learned to deal with, and really to kind of say, yep, I messed up. This is my role. This is how I sort of approach the situation. And that's really done wonders, I think, for at least for me. And I know like for you, especially just the way that I've sort of like showed up, and been able to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to take my armor down and I'm going to really be vulnerable. And I'm going to talk about these things now in ways that I really never have been able to before.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's huge, and that's common with ADHDers. I think a lot of us are perfectionists, people pleasers. We're like these high achievers, and I think that's why it got missed for both you and I. I mean, we did well in school, we were successful in our career. We always have had this drive just to please and be successful and to be perfect. So that can play out in a relationship when you're very intimate with someone, you're sharing a life with them. Like you're going to start to see their imperfections and flaws, and you can get frustrated with that or irritated with that. But I think a lot of it is just how you communicate that with each other, and understanding that if one of us is bringing something up or providing feedback, it's coming from a place of love and support. And it's really just a desire to improve, right? It's not an attack. So both you and I kind of working through that rejection sensitivity and embracing our imperfections in ourselves and each other, and just working through that, right? And I think a big shift for you and I has been, it's you and I against the world, against the problem versus against each other, right? Like it's not about who's winning, tit for tat, I'm right, you're wrong. It's like, no, we both have our own perception of reality, and that's valid. We both have our own emotional experience, and that's valid. But we're on the same team, right? And we always have had the saying team timer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what it means, is team timer, right? And this was even before we had kids, just this idea of like, we are on the same team, when you win, I win, when I win, you win. And just embracing that mentality has really helped both of us, I think, take the armor down and just love each other for who we are, and not get in that like defense mode all the time.
Yeah. Now I look back and, kind of taking this back to our beginning, right, our 20s, and, thinking about how that, all those different things. Yeah, there's our wedding photo, baby face me, and so
the reflection. Well, and the funny thing is too, we actually married quite young, I think, when you think about it. So we met, I was 19, you were 21. Was I 23 or 24?
So 2007. So I would have been out of December 2007. So I would have been 26.
Okay, so I was 24, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, I think in today's world that would be considered quite young. But at that point we had been together for 4 years. I think I had graduated, you were still finishing up. But yeah, we got married, and I don't think we quite even knew, what was going to be involved with marriage and everything in the future. But we just knew that we loved each other and we had that connection. I would say probably our 20s and 30s were some really challenging years, right? Just a lot of growing pains, really trying to figure out who we are, trying to get established in our career, trying to share a house together, household tasks. That's something that we've always struggled with. And now that makes sense with ADHD. And then, the next era was kind of parenthood. This is me with our oldest, Nora.
Yeah, you're holding Nora.
Yeah, I'm holding Nora, and then Emma. And, that was our maternity photo shoot. So I think that was another really hard phase of kind of getting to our 30s and wanting to start a family. we never were really sure if that was going to happen to us based on some circumstances, but then kind of being in that place where we wanted to start, and we'll have a whole episode on that as well. But there was a lot of heartache, a lot of hardships in trying to create a family. And then kind of early on with postpartum and parenthood, there was loss, there was trauma, just a lot of hard stuff. But again, we persevered. And I think as we got further into parenting, and kind of the demands got heavier and heavier with our career, parenting, our relationship, marriage, our own mental, physical health, that's when we started to feel maybe that something had to shift.
I think we've had these realizations along the way at different points in our life. And, especially more recently, as you really kind of evolve and get more mature and you kind of think about things, you understand this diagnosis, and you can look back now and have these different sort of analyses of why did we interact those ways? And so in our 20s, we had no recognition of that. We had no idea what any of that stuff was or why we were doing what we were doing. And I think I had a lot of things that I had to work through, especially, as I kind of came out of a scenario where, there was a kind of a lot going on for me, but at the same time, not a lot going on for me back home where I came from. So I had to really remove myself from that environment. That was my first step, and then getting here, and then us being together, and I had to kind of find my way out of a lot of things that I had, emotionally, and just challenges that I faced. And so, but it's amazing how we've kind of worked through that together, and so that's like the pattern, right? That's the continuous thing, is that we've always come back together and found ways to kind of talk through it and make it work, because of that love that we have for each other.
Yeah. And I think we had our own demons and things that we had to sort through. And up until recently, we didn't have that awareness, and awareness is key to change. And so in the last few years, really doing some work in therapy, both you and I, to understand our upbringing, our family dynamics, our lived experience, and how that has shaped us. And now even with our neurodivergence, and really owning that and understanding why we are the way that we are, why we react or behave the way that we behave, and really understanding each other, right? And our own backgrounds. And gosh, that's just been so transformational. And I love this last picture because it really represents kind of who we are today. So we redid our wedding photos, but like just in a fun kind of edgy way, showing who we are today, because these two different versions are much different, but also the same at their core.
Yeah.
Right. But I think in the last 21 years, we have been through so much growth, heartache, pain, evolution. And now to kind of be on the other side of that and to share our story and kind of talk about it, it's very empowering. It's very exciting. And that's why we're doing this, right? We feel like we are finally at this phase of life where we have done that work, and the work never stops, right? We will always go to therapy and have our check-ins and have date nights. Like within a marriage, it needs ongoing care, just like for our own well-being. So it's something that we're always going to invest in. But I think we've learned a lot of things that have really helped us, and we want to share that with the world. So that's why we're doing this. That's why we're here. This is just the initial kind of introduction to our story, but we want to go through each decade and era and talk more about it, challenges, and how we kind of work through it, and then start to share more about our life today and this transition that we've gone through, and just have you guys follow along to kind of see our journey. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited, and really think about, we're in a place right now in our life where we feel like we know who we are, in a way that, like, just feels very validating, very comforting. And I think to be able to speak to that and to help other people kind of understand that, like, you can navigate these things, and there's certain ways that may work for you, or that don't work for you. But I think for us, really just to be in a place to kind of vocalize that, hey, like, we're in a place that we kind of understand, like, our sort of authentic selves, and I mean, in this last year, I got my first tattoo, and then I went out and got several tattoos, but these are things that I've chosen because it really reflects, like, where we are right now in life and what we understand about ourselves. And I'm so glad that I waited to do something like that until this point in my life, because it's very meaningful, and it's very reflective of, like, sort of our journey, and really my mindset, right, and where I am today, and to be comfortable within my own skin, to be able to kind of like share those things. And I told Amy, I said that was so therapeutic, and just it was just very it was almost like a release, like a way to say like this is who I am, kind of shout that out, by putting something permanently on my body. And so and just to feel comfortable with that, and to know that like even 5 years ago I would have not felt comfortable with that, and so just super excited to kind of talk through that, and really share it from that lens of like, hey, like we feel like we are in such a, I guess authentic phase of our life. And so I'm really excited to really kind of now walk back through all those different eras, and just really reflect on, how we've gotten here now.
Yeah, it's a full circle moment for sure. And I think just embracing our self-expression and just doing things that we want to do, the whole Mel Robbins let them theory, we can express ourselves and live our life in a way that is authentic and meaningful for us and our kids. And not everyone's going to understand that or agree with that, but that's okay. We got this. We have each other. And I think that's the most important thing. It's like us against the world. And we have our little Neuro Nest here that we just love and makes us feel so safe and secure. And I think that's, at the end of the day, what really matters is just being together, feeling that we can be ourselves, and encouraging our kids to grow up that way as well.
Absolutely. So look forward to sharing more about that, and we'll dive deeper in our next episode.
That's right. Thanks for listening, guys. Stay tuned.
Bye.